The joke was supposed to get the biggest laugh of the day. Comedian Marcus Williams had just delivered his signature bit about airline food, and the Ellen Show audience was roaring with laughter. But Ellen wasn't laughing. Her eyes were locked on an elderly man in the front row who had suddenly gone completely pale, his hands shaking as he gripped his seat. In 12 seconds, Ellen would make a decision that stopped the comedy cold and revealed that sometimes the funniest people carry the heaviest burdens. The Warner Brothers studio was buzzing with the infectious energy that made Ellen's show America's favorite afternoon escape. Marcus Williams, the breakout comedy star whose Netflix special had been streaming #1 for 6 weeks, was Ellen's featured guest. His appearance was perfectly timed with his new stand-up tour, and the audience was packed with comedy fans eager to hear his latest material. Ellen had opened the show with her trademark dance moves, spinning through the audience and spreading joy like confetti. Marcus's interview segment had been pure gold. They'd shared stories about his childhood in Detroit, his journey from construction worker to comedy clubs, and his upcoming HBO special. The audience loved his self-deprecating humor and infectious laugh. "Now Marcus is going to do a few minutes of his newest material," Ellen announced to enthusiastic applause. "This is stuff you won't hear anywhere else first. Marcus Williams, everybody." Marcus took center stage, adjusting the microphone with the easy confidence of a performer who'd found his calling. The audience settled into expectant silence, ready to laugh. "So I was on a plane last week," Marcus began, launching into his signature airline routine. "And they served what they called chicken. I'm looking at this thing thinking, this chicken had a rough life. This chicken had student loans." The audience erupted in laughter, but Ellen's attention was drawn to the front row. An elderly black man, probably in his 70s, wearing a crisp white shirt and black slacks, had been laughing along with everyone else just moments before. But now he sat frozen, his face drained of color. Marcus continued his routine. The flight attendant comes by and asks, "Would you like a beverage?" I said, "Yeah, can I get some hot sauce for this rubber chicken?" She says, "Sir, that's the life jacket demonstration." Another wave of laughter filled the studio, but the man in the front row wasn't laughing anymore. His hands were visibly trembling, and Ellen could see him taking deep, deliberate breaths, like someone fighting off a panic attack. Ellen tried to focus on Marcus, who was building toward his closing bit, but something about the man's distress felt urgent. He kept touching his chest pocket, where Ellen could make out the outline of what looked like a photograph. "You know what really gets me about airlines?" Marcus continued, unaware of the drama unfolding in the audience. "They say, in case of emergency, the oxygen masks will drop down. I'm thinking, in case of emergency, I'm not putting on a mask, I'm putting on a parachute." The audience was in stitches, but the elderly man had closed his eyes and was gripping his armrests so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Ellen noticed a woman beside him, probably his daughter, reaching for his arm with growing concern. That's when Ellen made the split-second decision that would change everything. "Marcus!" Ellen called out, stepping forward with her hand raised. "Hold on just 1 second." Marcus paused mid-sentence, his expression shifting from performer to concerned friend. The audience's laughter died abruptly, replaced by confused murmurs. Ellen was already walking toward the front row, her heels clicking against the studio floor in the sudden silence. Every camera followed her movement as she approached the elderly man. "Sir, are you okay?" Ellen asked gently, kneeling beside his chair. The man opened his eyes, startled to find Ellen DeGeneres crouched next to him. "I'm fine," he whispered, but his voice was shaky. I need a moment." Ellen's producer was gesturing frantically from the side of the stage, but Ellen ignored him completely. She could sense this wasn't a medical emergency. It was something deeper. "What's your name?" Ellen asked softly. "William." "William Jackson," he replied, his breathing still labored. "William, can you tell me what's wrong? Did something Marcus said upset you?" William looked toward the stage where Marcus stood with his microphone, watching the scene unfold with growing understanding and concern. "No, he's funny. Real funny. He reminds me of..." William's voice broke. "He reminds me of my son." Ellen felt her heart clench. "Tell me about your son." William reached into his chest pocket with trembling fingers and pulled out a worn photograph. It showed a young black man in his 20s, microphone in hand, clearly performing on a small comedy club stage. "Jerome," William said, his voice barely audible. "He was a comedian too, just like that young man up there. Same energy, same joy." The studio had gone completely silent. Ellen could feel the weight of 300 people holding their breath, sensing they were about to witness something profound. "Was?" Ellen asked gently. "He died 2 years ago," William whispered. "Car accident on his way home from a show in Chicago. He was finally making it, you know? Had 3 comedy clubs wanting to book him regular. He called me that night, so excited about this new bit he'd written about airplane food." Ellen felt the air leave her lungs. She looked back at Marcus, who had gone completely still on stage, his microphone hanging loose in his hand. "William," Ellen said, her voice thick with emotion, "is this your first time hearing comedy since Jerome died?" William nodded, tears now flowing freely. "My daughter brought me. Said I needed to start living again. But when that young man started talking about airplanes..." He touched the photograph. "Jerome's last words to me were about airplane food. Said he had a bit that was going to make people forget about their troubles." That's when Marcus Williams did something that proved why he was more than just a comedian. He set down his microphone, walked off the stage, and approached Williams' row. "Mr. Jackson," Marcus said, his voice gentle and respectful, "may I sit with you?" William looked up at this stranger who had unknowingly reopened a wound and nodded. Ellen gestured for a crew member to bring another chair. Within moments, Marcus was sitting beside William, with Ellen kneeling in front of them both. "Tell me about Jerome's comedy," Marcus said. "What made him special?" William's face transformed as he began to remember. "He could make anyone laugh. Even when times were hard, even when we couldn't afford much, Jerome would come home and do these voices, these impressions. He'd imitate our neighbors, our pastor, even me." A small smile broke through his tears. "He said comedy was medicine. Said if he could make people laugh, he could help them heal." Marcus nodded, understanding completely. "That's exactly right. That's what we do. We're healers who happen to be funny." Ellen stood up and addressed her entire studio. "Everyone, we're going to do something different today. We're going to honor Jerome Jackson, a comedian who understood that laughter really is the best medicine." She turned to Marcus. "Marcus, would you be willing to help us celebrate Jerome's memory?" Without hesitation, Marcus said, "Absolutely. Mr. Jackson, would you tell me one of Jerome's jokes? I'd like to tell it to everyone here." William's eyes widened. "You'd do that?" "It would be my honor." William wiped his tears and thought for a moment. He had this bit about being tall. Jerome was 6'5", and he'd say, "Being tall is great until you get on an airplane. Then you're not tall, you're luggage. They try to stuff you in the overhead compartment." Despite his tears, William smiled as he remembered his son's voice. Marcus chuckled appreciatively. "That's good material," Marcus said. Jerome had talent. Ellen turned to the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, comedy isn't just entertainment. It's connection. It's healing. It's a way to honor the memory of people like Jerome Jackson, who believed that laughter could change the world." She addressed her audience directly. "I want everyone here to understand something. Mr. Jackson lost his son, but Jerome's gift, his ability to bring joy to others, lives on every time someone chooses to laugh instead of cry, every time someone finds hope instead of despair. Then Ellen made a gesture that would define this moment forever. She took off her soft lavender sweater, the one she'd chosen that morning because it reminded her of her own mother, and draped it gently around William's shoulders. "Mr. Jackson, this won't bring Jerome back, but I want you to know that his dream of helping people heal through laughter is alive in this room today, and I have something else for you." Ellen pulled out her phone and showed it to William. "I'm starting the Jerome Jackson Comedy Scholarship at the Los Angeles Comedy College. Young comedians who want to follow in Jerome's footsteps will get the support they need to share their gift with the world." William broke down completely then, clutching Ellen's sweater around his shoulders like a shield against grief. Marcus put his arm around the older man's shoulders, and for a moment, comedy and tragedy sat side by side, proving they were never as far apart as people thought. "There's one more thing," Marcus said suddenly. "Mr. Jackson, I want to dedicate my tour to Jerome's memory. At every show, I'll tell his airplane joke and remind people that comedy comes from love, not just laughs." The audience rose to their feet, not in the manufactured applause of television, but in the organic appreciation of humans recognizing a sacred moment. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was a celebration of life, of legacy, of the power of laughter to heal even the deepest wounds. Ellen addressed the camera one final time. "Today we learned that comedy isn't just about making people laugh. It's about honoring those who came before us, supporting those who come after us, and remembering that sometimes the most important audience is just one person who needs to know they're not alone." The episode became a turning point, not just for The Ellen Show, but for conversations about grief and healing across America. The Jerome Jackson Comedy Scholarship funded dozens of aspiring comedians, many of whom went on to successful careers in stand-up, television, and film. 6 months later, William Jackson attended Marcus Williams's show in Los Angeles. When Marcus told Jerome's airplane joke, William laughed, really laughed, for the first time since his son's death. After the show, he went backstage and told Marcus, "Jerome would have loved that. He would have been honored." Marcus never forgot that lesson about the responsibility that comes with the power to make people laugh. His comedy evolved, becoming more thoughtful, more connected to real human experience. He often said in interviews that meeting William Jackson taught him the difference between getting laughs and earning them. Ellen's lavender sweater became one of William's most treasured possessions. He wore it to every comedy show he attended afterward, and there were many. He became a regular at comedy clubs around Los Angeles, always sitting in the front row, always ready to laugh, carrying Jerome's legacy forward one chuckle at a time. And Ellen learned that sometimes the most powerful moments in television happen when we stop trying to entertain and start trying to heal. When we remember that behind every face in the audience is a story, a loss, a hope that maybe, just maybe, today will be the day they remember how to laugh again. The comedy went on, but it was transformed, deeper, more meaningful, more aware of its power to heal, because sometimes the best medicine really is laughter, especially when it comes wrapped in understanding, compassion, and the recognition that we're all just people trying to find our way through the darkness together.